Thank you, Erin, for the introduction. I also want to thank Ambassador Brownback and Secretary Pompeo for hosting this event. It means a lot to me and my family that the U.S. State Department is prioritizing religious freedom. My father, Ilham Tohti, is in a Chinese prison serving a life sentence because he chose to speak out about what he believes are basic, essential human rights. The right to believe what you believe, the right to worship the way you want to worship, the right to think what you want to think. My father is a respected Uyghur scholar whose dedication to the religious, academic, and cultural freedom of his community is why he's now in prison. My father's so-called crime, speaking openly about what was happening to Uyghurs in China. He talked to journalists. He encouraged dialogue and understanding. He sees oppression of freedom as a problem that needs to be fixed. And that problems that are not fixed will always lead to bigger problems. The Chinese treatment of Uyghurs was always causing bigger societal damage. Even before the horrific crackdown, the camps, the ongoing torture of innocent people, China was creating larger, longer-term problems because of the damage they were doing between groups of people. When people are treated and labeled as separate or different, as wrong or bad, human connection cannot happen. My father is a fixer, a bridge builder, a connector. He knows that a better future is one where Han Chinese and Uyghur children are in school together, are friends together, and have the same opportunities. His vision is for human connection. For this vision, he worked very, very hard. He created a website so people could share their thoughts and the truth. He wanted to be the bridge between Han Chinese and Uyghurs. But his exercise of free speech, his intellectual defense of religious freedom, his fights for the Uyghurs to be treated equally could not be tolerated by the Chinese. I have not had any updates on my father's condition since 2017. I have not spoken to him since 2014, and I have not seen him since we were separated at the airport in 2013. We were on our way to Indiana University, where my father was supposed to start a year-long residency. He was detained by Chinese authorities. I continued on to America and was able to enroll at IU, and I just graduated 2 months ago. When my father and I were able to speak on the phone, I remember how glad he was to hear that I was able to openly observe Ramadan as a student at Indiana University. I was able to wear hijab and pray and fast without fear of being monitored and imprisoned. There was no such freedom for Uyghurs in China, not at the school where my father was a professor, not in public, not even in a private house. Instead, there are signs on the street reminding Uyghurs that they are not allowed to be visibly Muslim. Street signs feature Muslim faces, women in hijab or men with long beards, inside a red circle with a slash across their face. The message in Chinese is, extremism is not allowed. The larger message is all too clear. You're not free to believe what you believe or to dress the way you want to dress or to say the things you want to say. Any attempt to post online about religion, the Quran, or the reality of the camps is censored in China. This is why you won't be able to find any information about the concentration camps on social media or anywhere else online. At schools, children fill out forms listing what books are there in their homes. These forms can trigger home inspections and confiscation of books and other religious items. Uyghurs burn their prayer mats in sewer drains so their mats won't be discovered during home inspections. Even telephone gratings are monitored and controlled. Assalamu alaikum wa alaikum assalam. People used to use these Muslim greetings that mean, may God give you good health, may God give you peace. But we have learned that we can only say hello and bye-bye if we don't want to be targeted for inspection or jail. Freedom of religion and thought is actually supposed to be legal in China, according to Chinese law. So the Chinese government is using extremism as an excuse to make their actions sound justified. Under the false label of extremism, the government has put 1 million population, probably even more than that, into re-education camps, where Uyghurs are forced to give up their religion, language, and culture in favor of Chinese language and culture. For Uyghurs, education, language, and culture are tightly woven with our religious beliefs. So when our religion is illegal, we, the Uyghurs, are illegal. That is why the Chinese government has burned Uyghur books and torn down the mosques in the Uyghur region. Uyghurs no longer have a place to pray or to be educated within their faith. The idea that every person in these terrible prison camps is an extremist is absurd. The Chinese government uses language that is designed to tap into the Islamophobia that exists in other parts of the world. They use terms like religious terrorists and refer to Uyghur beliefs as those thoughts to portray faith and thinking as some kind of threat. It is ridiculous to say that 1 million people are brainwashed terrorists. But this is the kind of language that government is using to justify tearing families apart and putting so many innocent people into camps. They call the orphanage camps for children schools or kindergartens. They harvest prisoners' organs for sale in the organ market. At the airport, there is now a fast-track security lane for organs to pass. That's how common this is. The stories are absolutely terrible. I can tell you that the Chinese are threatened by religious freedom because free, faithful people are a threat to them. The Uyghur region is in a very important part of China, rich in natural resources, oil, gold, and agriculture. It is also the gateway to Central Asia and many other countries. The Belt and Road Initiative will pass right through the Uyghur region. Instead of working with the Uyghurs, the Chinese government decided to eliminate our culture. They do this by suppressing our religious rights and by locking up scholars like my father who defend religious and cultural freedom. Uyghurs who experience and participate in religious and intellectual freedom while studying abroad are also seen as threats. Their families are watched. Sending money to a student to support their studies is considered to be a crime. Decent people are monitored and locked up for the crimes of learning, faith, and free speech. I think it is very obvious to everyone here that my father and all the other people in the camps should be released. My father's only crime was to use his word and his pen to tell people what is happening. But the real crime is the camp themselves. I'm grateful that my father's story and the story of the Uyghurs in the camps are being told. But this is not how Uyghurs want to be known in the world. I have specific action items for this group to consider. Please demand that China release all the people who have been taken to the camps for false crimes. Demand that China release the names of all the prisoners. Right now, there's no way for family members to know where their loved ones are being held or what kind of conditions they are in. Perhaps the Chinese government could use their facial recognition technology for the humanitarian purpose of sharing information with family members, not to capture more people. Thank you. Instead of using this technology for making people live in a worse life, they should make people's life better. Is China really qualified to host the 2022 Winter Olympics before all the Uyghurs are liberated from the re-education camps? Will individuals and every single country continue to allow the hope for monetary gain and fear of retribution to silence your country's actions? I will not be silent. Will you continue to allow China to silence your actions? I have one more question for China. Dear China, you are so strong, but why are you so scared to let people have their own beliefs, or even to know the outside world? Is this really about extremism, or is this really about control and power? Thank you again for having me here today and for your dedication to religious freedom. Thank you very much.